Thanks for listening to the Building Better Business podcast. I'm Dr. Glenn Bryan. I'm an educator, business owner, and your host. Our podcast provides a platform for business leaders to share their personal stories and how they've transformed their business success by focusing on marketplace trust. Join us in building better business. Well, welcome back to Building Better Business. Today, we're back again with Jesse Erickson, co-founder of Pathfinder in Kankakee, Illinois, a full-service marketing agency.
You got that right this time.
I got it right this time. Thank you. So, Jesse, we've had a great conversation the last time we were together. We talked about your entrepreneurial journey, what led you to create Pathfinder. And we ended it talking about the values of Pathfinder, which really were people and serving customers, right, with value. So in this episode, I think what we want to do is I want to dig deeper into your views of the 4 C's.
Sure.
What does it mean to you?
Which one do you want to start on?
Yeah, well, let's start right at the one I think is most important, the foundational, which is leadership character.
Character.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? And
sure.
Or do you have stories or comments about that we can pursue?
Oh man, I could go all day with stories like that.
Okay.
So I am not what I think is like a natural leader. I think I have some qualities that are leadership driven, but my personality does not. I'm an extreme introvert. So some of my very natural tendencies don't really play well with others.
Right.
But so one of the things that I try to compensate for that with is just like any of my employees will tell you, like I've never yelled at an employee. I am not, even when they really screw up. And it's not because maybe they don't deserve it sometimes. We've had some things where I'm like, man, just really.
Yeah, every business has those, right? Yeah.
But for me, it's like I have to try to look at them as people first and not just my employees or subordinates or whatever, however bad version of that you want to call it. I have stuff in my life too that from time to time really just, I don't get through the work I need to get through. I fail at something. I can't be in the office because I really need to deal with a more urgent matter in my life. Right. And so I try to respect that of others as long as it's not abused. And if it is, well, then we'll have a talk.
Well, and that's one of the character virtues, by the way, is respect. And that's what I'm hearing you talk about is respect goes 2 ways.
It goes 2 ways. And I try to tell people here too, even though some people struggle with this more than others, like I understand I'm the boss and all that kind of whatever, but like if I'm not accomplishing the things that you need to do your job, then you need to come sit me down and have a talk with me. Yeah. And not in like a demeaning way, just like, hey, you expect this of me, but I need that from you first. Right. And you're 2 days behind or 3, whatever it is. And it's hard for some people to do that because they're just very traditional environment in a job. But like I really challenge them to do that because like there has been times when I've like sat somebody down and I'm like, hey, you're not keeping up with whatever. And they have come back at me during that time and they're like, okay, that part you're right about, that's on me. This part, like, well, you told me you were going to do this and you didn't. And I have to always be ready to go, yeah, you're right. Like I didn't do this and that's not on you. And I've known other bosses or leaders, whatever you want to call it, they don't care or they forget or whatever. And they just say, no, this is 100% on you and whatever. And try to avoid that.
The whole accountability piece, right? We want to hold our employees accountable and we should. That's why we're paying them, right? But on the other hand, there's an accountability as a leader to follow
I'm not
through,
perfect.
Right?
I'm a human being too.
Right.
Like I need the accountability as well. And when you're at the top, I think sometimes it's hard to get that naturally, right? You almost have to ask for it in some cases. Right. I think, some business owners would say, well, I'm just accountable to my clients. But like I need to be accountable to my employees too. And like, what if I do start treating somebody really poorly or not spending enough time with an employee who really needs it? Yeah. I need to be told that because I'm not going to see everything 100%. It's not going to happen. Like I got my own stuff going on. It might not even be on purpose. It might just be like, wow, I didn't even know that was going on.
Right.
You know,
we all have blinders.
Blinders.
Right? We all get blinders on. We see the world through our own perspectives, and a lot of times when you get into a position of power and authority, those blinders get pretty thick.
I was gonna say it's easier to have them and keep them. And
it really is. Which is always, it's always important to have somebody. Not only, somebody really outside of the company who can hold you accountable, right? Too.
I think, I agree with that too. It doesn't matter who you are or what level of a company you're in. It is, I see it all the time with, clients or just businesses I watch, is that they get so stuck on whatever or something that's working so well for so long that they don't even realize it's starting to degrade. But like, you need that outside perspective. One of the things I enjoy doing is with clients, like when they do come to me with their business problems that are outside of the marketing stuff we do, is like, well, hey, I don't know how to fix that in your industry specifically. You deal with some challenges I don't know, but in this other client or in my own business, we tried this and it worked really well. And I think it's not because we're a marketing agency, but because it's a good business thing to do, or it's a new model to try. Mm-hmm. And just like, you don't have to, but here's an idea. And that creative modeling can really create some innovation for people.
So how do you keep yourself grounded? So as a leader of an organization, growing operation, multiple employees so far, what do you do personally? I mean, how do you think you keep yourself grounded in?
This is going to be a very different answer than I think most people will give. But my best friends, the people that know me the very best and very personally, are here in the business.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of business owners would tell you that's a big no-no.
Right. I've heard that multiple times.
And I do think it requires a lot of a leader to do that because, there's been times where my best friends are making me mad.
Yeah.
And my best friends need to be talked to. And that's not as easy of a conversation as just, Joe Schmo employee who, you're like, this needs to be done. It needs to be done this way. And that's what it is, right? And their families. And so you care about that. And so sometimes it's easy to give them more leeway than others. And that's not really fair either.
Yeah.
But that is how I keep grounded, though. My best friends are here. My wife is actually going to be working here as well and has some already. Mm-hmm. And they, more than anyone else, know how to be honest with me.
Right. There you go.
Even when I can't see it, even when I don't want to see it, even when I'm like, I am listening to you and I hear you and I just don't know how to fix this about myself or what I'm doing. But it keeps the conversations real. I mean, it doesn't mean that either of us are right or wrong. It doesn't mean I'm really real with them. Like, I can think of a couple conversations with like my wife and one of my very best friends that works here where I'm like, I know this is a problem for me. I can't see it when it's happening, and I don't know why people are saying it about me, but I know it's being said, and I know I need to do something, but like I cannot see it, and I'm trying, and help me. And I'm not always perfect at that either, but that's what keeps me grounded. It's like we are at Pathfinder, we are very honest with each other, and it comes from a place of care and love, but also like we need to grow a business. We need to do hard work. We need to. And sometimes we need to sacrifice some things. Right. But it also helps us manage those sacrifices in a way where it's like, hey, you need to not be here because I know that you are dealing with a sick kid or you got stuff going on with your family or your wife or whatever. And so we have real conversations about that too. And so it's an interesting dynamic. And there are many people that have said to me, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I am. Because honestly, if I can't do this with my best friends, then maybe I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, you're right. That's not your typical answer.
No,
right. You're not going to get that. But I get that. Our friends and family know all of our faults.
Mm-hmm. So well,
and willing to share them with us as well. Right. Exactly. But it brings in this idea that to be a leader, you have to be very self-aware, right? You have to be willing to look very critically at yourself because your job is not doing the work. It's managing the people that are doing the work. And that's a very different role. And it takes a lot of thought, right, and care and compassion as you move forward.
I mean, every day, every time we grow, it requires even more of that, and not just because it requires more of those actions, but because, I'm dealing with more in my life, both, with different people, with more people. And so I also have to check myself more because it's so much. Dealing with one person, you can kind of check yourself every day, no problem. When you're dealing with 10 different people coming at you, positively or negatively, it doesn't matter. The stress level rises. It's harder to keep, keep everything kind of straight and make sure you're responding to each situation in the same way you always would. And as you grow, I think that's why more as a bigger company, the leaders do less of the work and more of the work on people.
Sure. So let's move on to the culture, because that's really where you're headed with that, which I think is interesting. So you start as a small company. You're obviously growing. You've got a number of employees now. Running an operation where there's maybe 1, 2, or 3 people is significantly different than trying to create a culture. Because now you have employees that you may not see all day doing work representing Pathfinder.
Right.
And in fact, given some of your earlier comments in our last episode, you may not see them for a whole week.
Correct.
And so you want them to carry the culture of the organization. Thoughts on that?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on that. We don't hire primarily for skill. This is actually something I learned at my dad's company. When I was there full time, we had some HR people there that are also some close friends of mine now. But we put an interview process in where there were 3 interviews no matter what. And some people don't like that because they're like, it takes too long and whatever. I'm like, no. It saves us a lot. The first is the phone screen. We just make sure this is a candidate that might be in the ballpark.
Right.
And you can weed that out pretty quick. The second interview, and this is an engineering company, second interview, we almost talk about no engineering.
Really?
We ask them questions about themselves. We ask them to tell us stories about situations in their life.
Interesting.
And we know really, really fast if they're going to be a fit for our culture and where we want to go and what we want them to do and learn.
Right.
I've thrown a lot of people out of the running, not because they weren't a fantastic engineer, but because they are not going to work out here.
Right.
And we keep people longer because of that. We ask them to tell us a story about something that explains to or tells us about themselves from a values perspective.
Oh, wow.
And they, almost all of them, and these are engineers, mind you, they just sit there and they go, huh.
They've never been asked that question before.
They haven't. Yeah. Some of them make a pretty blatant comment when we ask that first, like, whoa, that's a good question,
Right.
But we ask questions like that, and it's interesting. You can tell a lot about a person because, some of them won't tell a story. So I almost immediately know they're not a good culture fit because they're making up something rehearsed, essentially, to be good about themselves. Some of them will tell us something very heartfelt and emotional. And in many cases, that also tells us like, hey, they're going to be great because they see the humanness beyond everything else. And some of us just tell us like a story that you're like, I think they're going to work well with people or, whatever. So the answers from that are just the most interesting. I love that question.
Yeah.
But so from a culture perspective, we are that is the first thing we think about. In fact, a lot of our employees did not do much of or at all the thing that they do here from a technical perspective. A lot of our videographers were taught here. Mm-hmm. We had a graphic designer full time who was taught here. I remember his first design and you didn't want to make him feel bad, but you were like laughing at it.
Right.
It was bad. But he became one of the best designers. I mean, he just fantastic work. And because it speaks to like, if they're a good culture fit and our culture is about learning and development and like being willing to work with the team, even when like that might require a late night or, hey, I need something over the weekend or whatever. They they will just put in the work. They will learn. One of our graphic designers now, she is a mom and a wife, and I trust her completely. I don't see her very often, but like I'll get work from her at like midnight on Saturday. She is putting in her time. It looks different for her, but she is putting it in, and I don't have to tell her. She always puts it in.
Right.
And so I just trust my people. Now, we've been, when you trust people that openly, there are some times when you screwed up and you should have been watching a little closer, or someone just tries to take advantage of it. But those are few and far between. And we just trust our people to do good quality work and represent us well. Yeah. And the moment that they're not doing that, they're getting talked to. They're going to get a performance plan. They're going to be told you need to be here 9 to 5 until this rights itself, or whatever the situation is or the issue is. But yeah, culture first.
Do you think? I'm just thinking about a number of our listeners. A lot of times when we talk about culture, we're always talking about office work or technology type of work. What are your thoughts on culture when it comes to? I have a crew of plumbing crew. I've got a roofing crew. I've got hard solid workers out in the field doing sort of heavy manual type of labor. Do you think it applies?
Oh, 100%. I mean, here's the thing: like, you can be the best plumber in the world, but if you're kind of a jerk to the client, they aren't coming back.
I hired that guy one time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, one time.
I had this in my own life. I think most of us have, where you can think of some service, something, some person you dealt with where you had no problem with the work. Work was fine, but you were kind of like, I don't want to work with that person ever again.
Yeah.
And as a business, we rely on repeat work.
Yeah.
We rely on what those customers might tell other potential customers about us. And we need that trust from future clients, coming in. And so if you have a bad fit like that, you're just going to end up dealing with problems, and they're probably not worth the cost, quite frankly. I think that a lot of businesses get stuck in, well, that guy, he brings in the most revenue, he gets the most work done, whatever. But like, if the culture fit is that bad, you're going to end up spending more or really not making as much as you think you are. I actually...
it's a hidden cost.
It's a hidden cost, and you don't know where it's going to show up, I think is the worst part. Yeah. I can think of 2 different instances, 2 different companies I have dealt with in different scenarios where a bad egg employee caused other good employees to leave.
Oh, yeah.
And that cost is almost sometimes irreplaceable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and you don't know that's coming necessarily.
Particularly in an environment where jobs are easily available, right? If I'm a high quality worker and I wind up in a caustic or sort of a negative type environment, I
just go get another job.
I start looking. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah,
Why bother?
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that entrepreneurs need to be very keenly aware of that, because you're just not going to know you're not going to know the cost until you're in it. And that by that time it's too late.
Yeah.
And I think you just need to be very keenly aware of what might cost you something and take care of it.
So, I just want to pause right here and sort of think about one of the things I want to be careful about as we talk about, this softer side of business is really what we're talking about in this episode. I want to highlight benefits, right? So benefits of high character leadership, benefits of an engaging culture. What are your thoughts? One right there, we talked about cost, right?
Number one, I think we all like each other better. And it makes the hard times easier.
There you go. I like that.
Because what happens is, when I do need to have a hard conversation with somebody, they know I care about them.
Right.
And so they don't think I'm just coming at them. They don't just think I'm being a jerk.
Right.
They may not like what I'm saying. They may not have a perfect initial reaction. But in general, they know that even if I'm wrong in some cases, that I'm coming from a place of like, I think I'm seeing this. I'm definitely feeling this way about it. And we need to talk through it. And that's the solution, or we need to fix something. And sometimes I do go to employees like, I've had employees where they didn't want to tell you the truth. And not because they disliked you, not because they didn't want to, they just couldn't for whatever reason or didn't feel like it was their place. And I tell people all the time, no, you tell me what you think. I'll tell you if I think you're wrong, but not because I don't want you to tell me and trust me, but because like, I think we just need to have an open and if I think you're wrong, I'll tell you that. Convince me I'm wrong. Like that's okay. Like I'm not going to be right about everything. I don't see everything either. Like some employees in certain cases have put on a show for me. And then when I'm out of the room, what comes out is different.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind that honesty, and I want to come to some kind of compromise or solution, even if it's not my way. So I think that's important. What was part of the question?
Well, I was just looking at benefits.
Yeah. And so I think the other thing too is like, not necessarily when I need to have a hard conversation with an employee, but like if business goes down, revenue goes down, if we have a key employee leave, if a client pulls out because of something not with us, but is going on elsewhere that really costs us problems, or when we have a client that's causing us problems directly, like those situations are easier to remedy when you have that good culture with your employees because you're kind of in it together, and it isn't just, he's the boss taking home the cake and I'm just the grunt. And that's not, to me, this has been the case. This is a very personal thing, I think, for a lot of business owners to even share, but like it's real for most business owners. So I don't know why it is that almost all of our full-time employees right now take home from this business more than I do. Still, we're only 3.5 years old as a combined business. Right. They take home more than I do. And that to me is very important to me, not because I want it to be that way forever.
Right.
But because I want them to know, and I don't necessarily tell them all up front, but most of them know that like, I'm not in this for me. I'm in this for us.
Right.
And I don't want an employee to suffer if I can help it. I don't want to take profits home if I've got somebody going home and they're barely making it. Like it's just not, and I'm not, I'm not saying that those situations don't exist or they're not caused necessarily by their own choices, which does happen too. But in general, I want to make sure that it's a we thing. It's a team thing, and that we're accountable to each other. And those are really the benefits. Like and I think one of the things we talked in the other episode, sorry, I keep going, but is that when you're alone as an entrepreneur, when you don't have a partner, or even if you do, like we need employees, we need these people, no matter what that relationship is, we need them to do work, to bring us revenue, to make profits, to grow the business. Doesn't take your pick, doesn't matter. And so when it's very, when businesses are in a hierarchy mode in how they treat each other, not how they operate, but how they treat each other, it just, why would employees care to help you grow your business? Why? They're going to do what's best for them first. And how do you blame them for that? I mean, I know people do, but in reality, like you want them to care about this thing too. This needs to be their baby to some extent too.
So the reason why we care about the 4 C's is exactly what you're talking about. They're underlying everything you're talking about is this element of trust, right? And so we talk about character leading to leadership trust in my leader. An engaging culture leads to employee trust as well. So thank you. This is really good. Let's move on. I want to talk about your marketing agency. You deal with customers all the time. Think about them.
I have so many customer stories you wouldn't believe, or maybe you would.
Let's talk about what does it mean to have a satisfied customer? I mean, what is that? What's that take, and what does it mean? And
I'll start with a very unpopular opinion.
Okay.
There is I feel like there's one main line for customers that everybody knows. The customer is always right.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah.
The customer is right to a point for me.
Right.
That does not mean that I want to treat customers poorly. That does not mean that I don't put them first.
Right.
What it means is sometimes they're wrong just like me. Okay. And in marketing, I think it's so when you're, if you provide like a consumer service, like if you're a restaurant, I think the customer is always right situation applies more often.
Okay.
In our business, we don't always get our way, But when I look at customers, I'm like, hey, if you tell us what you need and you will not bend, you're not going to necessarily get the thing that's going to actually grow your business.
Right.
And I think it's a hard thing because of the trust level there, the trust factor, where like it's my business and maybe they kind of think they could be wrong, but they can't trust you enough to do it. Right. But at the end of the day, like if we can't do our job and help you and come alongside you and give you that feedback, like we may not be able to accomplish what you want.
They're not getting your expertise at that point.
They're not.
I mean, you're just simply a technician doing functions.
That's
doing a functional piece for them instead of bringing your knowledge, your background, your experiences, and expertise to solving a problem. I mean, they came to you for a reason.
Yep.
But that's a big deal. I mean, what you're talking about there is having customers trust the vendor, right? Whether it's a plumber, roofer, marketer, right? Insurance agent, whichever. Building that trust is really critical because I'm sure you've experienced that when a client goes over that edge and trusts you, and you probably sense it when that happens. The door opens up to some really interesting we can do a better job for them, and honestly, we feel better about doing a good job for them. Yeah.
What I always say, I think sometimes when I tell people how I feel about the customer is always right, they bristle a little. But for me, it's very much like it doesn't. At the end of the day, I don't care if they're right or wrong. What I want them to know is that I want to do right by them.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm human, so doesn't mean it's going to be perfect every time. Let's just be clear about that. Yeah. There's other stuff going on around, and it may prevent you, or maybe yourself prevented you from doing the right perfect thing or everything you should have. But I want them to know who I am when I'm working with them, because what happens is when I do fail, they know it's not normal, or they know it's not lack of skill or experience. They know that, and they also know that I will make it right if I need to. And I think that it creates way better customer relationships. It doesn't always work. Right. Some people are just going to be some people.
Right.
But like I have some customers that like, I can just go sit and have lunch with them. It's not a sales discussion. It's not a hard conversation. It's not I'm here just because I need to be because you're my client. It's like, no, like maybe we don't talk about everything personal life, but we're friends.
Yeah.
We trust each other. We can have a conversation and be honest about it.
Yeah.
And I think to me, that just always works so much better. The relationship is first there.
Yeah. So maybe another way to pursue that is a question for you is what breaks trust with a customer?
It depends on the person.
Yeah.
And I think, I have some examples for sure, but some of them I know the example, but I don't know why still, because they wouldn't tell me. Right.
Sure.
Or maybe they didn't know why, but in general, for me, the honesty has hurt us in the past with some people that they don't care if I was being honest or not. It wasn't what they thought they were getting, or it wasn't what they expected. And so they're done anyway.
Yeah.
But for many, many others, like they know they can trust my word, good, bad, or indifferent. They know they can trust my word. And, in marketing, sometimes things just fail.
Yeah.
It can be perfectly crafted, and sometimes they just fail. They just don't do as well as you think,
right?
Because something happened in the world, or something changed on a platform, or any of these issues. And so, I'm not afraid to share our data with them. I've talked to clients. I have one client I can think of right now. They're out of Alabama. I do their Google ads, and the only reason they decided to switch to me, not why they stay, but why they decided to switch to me, is I said to them, well, yeah, of course you have access to your ad data to see what's happening there, what's going right or wrong. And they said, we've been through 2 providers and they would not give us any access to anything. And they would just say, here's your ad spend. We're not going to go above that. And it's just rolling.
Lack of transparency.
Lack of transparency.
Yeah.
And
wow,
that's why they came. Now, I have done some good things for them that would tell you right now that they're happy with, that we're better than this other company. But that's why they switched, was that transparency and honesty with them. And there was a day that I told them I'd have something done. I did not. And I just said to him, I'm sorry. I didn't get it done when I said. I will do it today. And we're cool. No problem.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship we need, because again, we're all human. I understand that. I think everyone goes into this thinking that no matter who they hire, it has to be this perfect thing.
Right.
And I get it. I want that too. But it's not going to happen.
That's really good. That's really good. But I want to spend more time here talking about community, because we're actually in your podcast room.
Yep.
Here in your offices, and you are downtown Kankakee, Illinois.
Downtown Kankakee.
And I don't know everything that you're doing, but I know that you're actively engaged in the community. Mm-hmm. Give us a kind of an overview of that, and
Sure.
And then even more importantly, why and what's the benefit? Why would you do this?
So I talked about it some in my story, just like I think parts of, not all of it, but not actually close to all of it, but parts of why community is so important to me. And I see that not just in the town community, but in the community we create within our own business, in the community that we create with our customers. But, Kankakee it's not a small place, mm-hmm. but it's small enough that I very much believe in and view that whatever you give is going to come back around. Today, right now, we get new clients of Pathfinder that were people that I knew from a past experience or a situation, or that I've just known for a long time. And that builds trust. It just builds trust. Mm-hmm. And it comes back to even how I deal with those personal things of building trust. To me, it's all about how we all do this together. And why I hire my friends too. Despite that being bad advice from most businesses, no, if I can't do this with my community, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And so I view that about our outer community too. And I think that comes with a lot more challenges because they're not as close.
Right.
Lots more going on there.
Yeah.
But that said, we can't do everything. I always want to do more than we can do. We do sometimes have this argument within our own team, no, we want to do this thing for free because of whatever. And this, I care about this, but we also have to make money. And
at the end of the day, we are running businesses.
Every single cause that comes to us, I would love to support without charging them or charging them less or whatever.
Right.
We just can't do them all.
Right.
I want to, but we can't. But that said, the more we grow and the more we do within our community, the better it's going to be. And I believe this not just from a giving standpoint, but from a service standpoint. We work with small businesses that are next door neighbors, literally, or that are down the street, or that I'm on a committee with in some other capacity that I live down the street from in some cases. And so for me, it's this doesn't just, I can't just leave this at work. I know some people like that and that's fine. Right. But for me, I don't leave this at work. I carry this home with me. I'll use the bakery as an example.
Yeah.
The couple that was running that, I'll leave out a lot, but we're struggling a lot. It was a bad situation. They have 5 kids. And that to me was the heartbreak for me is I know they're headed for a very bad financial place, business and personal. And they've got kids, and I'm afraid they're going to lose their house. And I couldn't, I know them well enough that I just couldn't watch that.
Right.
And so I knew that I couldn't clean it all up for them. I knew that I couldn't stop. I figured at least maybe I can clot the bleeding, not stop the bleeding, but clot it to where maybe they can keep the house, and that kind of thing. And ultimately it's their own decisions to some extent. But for me, that was a community thing. The brand name is a community staple. It's been around for a long time. The people running it now, they were not the originals. I cared about their family, and I wanted them to not just fail all the way. I wouldn't want them to just, to me, I feel like it's an ecosystem where every business failure has an impact, whether we realize it or not, on the community.
Yeah.
It might be an empty building. It might be a broken family. either financially or relationally. It might be, a gap in a need in our community. It could be all these different things. To me, every business is a part of that. And when we don't have good quality businesses and good quality people, we all lose. And so they weren't going to be in the business anymore at this bakery, but I knew like if they fail further, if this gets worse, now we've got kids that need help in other ways from other services, government or whatever. Now we have that just hurts all of us, to me. So that's how I kind of go into all of this, is like, I know I can't help everybody or we'll just drain our bank account, right? But when we can at Pathfinder, I want to try to do right by those people. And so like there have been cases too where, we've had businesses. We have another client that they've been a client for a long time. Mm-hmm. They were a client of LinkPoint, which was one of the 3 that we joined. And there was probably 6 months plus. They made a decision that they felt was a really one that they had to do. It hurt them as a business for a good period of time.
Okay.
And they couldn't pay their bills to us.
Wow.
We did not stop giving service. Because they were moving to a new location. They had plans to grow. That was, they were feeding their families off of it. Like that's what this is.
Yeah.
And for us, like, I know that there was going to be a limit to that if they didn't figure it out. But to me, it was like, we're doing a big part of ensuring their customers keep coming and or new customers show up. And if we don't do that for them, I actually do think they might fail.
Yeah.
And so again, for me, it was, we need to build this up. And again, there's a line in the sand, but let's just try it for a while. And they pay me back.
Yeah, I think there's two things I'm interested in listening to you. And one is the whole value of people just has flown through this entire conversation in this episode. No question about that. But the other theme that I'm seeing here is we're not running charities, right? We're not nonprofits. We are for-profit businesses. At the end of the day, that's why we're running these businesses, is to take care of our families and our own needs. And so profitability is it's an important piece and an admirable piece. And so what I'm hearing though is, and I don't want us to lose this, is these are concerns for the community, outreaching to the community, individuals, great stories. And I want to say this right. They're using your skill sets of business analysis, right? Market understanding, to make a wise decision in terms of how your business can make profit at the same time impact people's lives in a very positive manner.
And it's a hard balance.
It is. But as business owners, we're called to that. I think that's I think it's a heart tug to do that. Yes. But we're skilled in that way.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a great opportunity for us to bring those skills to bear, helping other people, but at the same time, building businesses that have high value.
Well, I've talked to some nonprofits about this too, where their primary function is not to make profit. But what I say to them is, look, I know that you're not trying to make gobs of profit and do payouts to stakeholders and all this stuff, but listen, if you aren't running a good business here, you're not going to help anybody, or you're one day away from not helping anybody.
Yeah.
And it's the same with businesses. Obviously, profit is much more important, but to me, I think churches, same deal. Yeah. Like just all these organizations, all these structures, if you can, break even and give back all the what's ever above that, if you'd like, awesome. But if you're not breaking even, you're losing. And if you do that enough, you're not here. And then who are we helping?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Now we got an empty building. Now we don't have services. Now we don't have jobs. Yeah. I mean, it affects everybody.
Yeah. Let's bring it to a close. Okay. I'm going to ask you, we've got listeners who might be going, hey, I'm intrigued by this. I'm interested in this. What do they do? What's the first couple things that they should be thinking about? It's a tough question.
Yeah.
What do you think?
For Pathfinder or for in general?
In general.
In general.
In general.
I think if you are hearing some of this and it's very different than your current mindset, but you're intrigued by it, I think getting a mentor, getting help of someone that understands this, is passionate about it, and has done it is really important. Because in my own life and others, like if this is not a natural thing for you, you're not going to get there by continuing to run into the brick wall. Yeah. You need some outside perspective or help to do that. And so I think seeking that out is really important. I don't think you can do it alone. If you're doing it alone as an entrepreneur, like even if you think you're in the best place in the world, I just don't believe you. Right. Sorry. I think that we all stand to gain from that mentorship and help. I think I'm not suggesting you just go out and get a partner, because that can be bad too.
Correct.
You have to do that very carefully. But very careful. Getting that outside help, getting a coach or a mentor or something like that that you can trust. And you may need to build that over time too. You may not know who that is right now. Right. But like finding some people that, honestly, your community might point for you. If you see somebody popping up a lot in your community as a business leader, as a good quality, if you always hear when they're talked about them say like, that's a good guy, and they don't say that's a good business or he's well off or something like that, I think that's what really tells you that they might be a good mentor and be able to speak into something.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah. Selfish plug here. If you're a listener, continue to listen to our podcast. We're going to be interviewing business owners, consultants, educators who are going to be talking about the 4 C's and the benefits of that. And then also we have a weekly newsletter, which will pursue leadership character development. Because for me, it starts there. Yeah. It starts here, right? Yeah. And who we are as individuals. And then that plays out.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, Jesse Erickson, Pathfinder, thank you so much again for being a part of the podcast.
Yeah, you bet.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for listening to the Building Better Business podcast. To stay up on the latest episodes, be sure to subscribe and go to focus4c.com to sign up for our weekly newsletter for more stories and practical applications.